Hi, I'm Dana, and one of the most difficult questions I'm asked as an autistic person is how can we accommodate to you? Because I'm not someone who has pretty much ever been accommodated to in my life, and I'm also a late diagnosed autistic person. So I often don't know what is actually helpful. I don't know what accommodations I actually do need, and it's been quite a journey since my diagnosis to start actually figuring out the accommodations that actually come in handy and make my life easier and work as things that I need as a person. So in order to try and help out some other people, I thought today's video could be about the ways in which my close friends accommodate to me as an autistic person, because that's one of the areas that I've really struggled, because obviously my friends are the first people that are like, how can we help you, what can we do? And I was just like, don't know mate, like be nice I guess, like I don't know. But my friends are really, truly lovely people. So they've put the effort into figuring out how to accommodate to me and how to make me more comfortable. And then they've brought that up and mentioned how they're accommodating to me. And I'm like, that is a good accommodation. So now I can share that with you, and maybe you can adopt some of those into your life and talk to you about the. So I thought if I do a video about the ways in which they do that, some of you guys might be able to ask your friends to do the same. Some people might watch this who have autistic friends and try and use some of them. And it just generally puts out some of the ways that we can be assisted in optional social situations, because I feel like we often talk about accommodations in ways of like how to get a job, how to do this, and like sometimes I just need little social accommodations so that I can have a social life and live as a person and have friends. So getting right into it, the first one is specific invitations and times. So I really struggle with social things, and I also have a lot of anxiety. So if I feel unnecessary uncertainty about an event, there's a very high chance that I won't show up. Like if I feel like I don't know what time I should arrive, if I don't feel like I've necessarily been like directly invited, like if my group of friends are talking about doing something together, I won't assume that I'm invited. And I think people see it as like quite a like, oh poor Dana doesn't think they're invited kind of thing. And it's like, nah, like it's just what I'm used to. I've had a lot of friendship groups that would discuss the things they're doing without me, and honestly I don't mind, because a lot of the time in the past it was things that I didn't want to do anyway. So I got very used to just being like, nah, it's fine, I don't need to be invited, and just assuming that I wouldn't be because I wasn't. So having people that are willing to like directly be like, oh, and Dana, do you want to come to this? Or message me privately and be like, oh, are you coming to this? I'd like it if you were there. Means that I'm actually probably going to assume I am invited and actually at least try to come. The other side of that is the times, because if I don't know what time to arrive, if I don't know what kind of time I feel like I'll be finishing, I won't show up. And I also mention specific times, because I've had so many times where I've been told like, oh yeah, the party starts at 8. And I show up at 8 and it is not starting, it is not ready, nobody else is there, they are still setting up. And it's really embarrassing to have to just like sit there and make small talk while people are setting up their party because I was told the time that it starts and everyone shows up later. So the friends that I have now will often be like, oh, it starts at this time, but we're getting there for this time. And then I know that that's the time that I should also arrive. That's the actual like arrival time. I'm not entirely sure why people don't just do that anyway, to be fair. But I'm glad that my friends do it for me, because it means I actually get to attend social events and not have the extreme anxiety that I would otherwise, you know? Like a lot of this stuff isn't necessarily allowing me to do something, it just means that I don't have to feel so like horrifically anxious and scared and unsure the entire time. And the next thing that quite a lot of my friends do is speak for me, but they do it in the way of like, I will look at them, like someone will speak to me, I need to place an order, I need to like buy a ticket, you know, something is happening where we're together and I need to speak to a stranger, and they give me the space of like, sometimes I'm able to, sometimes I can do that, sometimes I'm not so overwhelmed, sometimes I'm not so anxious, and I can order my own coffee, I can place my own meal order, you know, whatever else. And other times I am too overwhelmed, I'm too anxious, and I'm going to stutter and stumble over my words and feel, you know, very overwhelmed and uncomfortable while I'm doing it. And there's a look that I know that I must give them, because they'll be like, oh, and they're getting and place my order for me, or buy the ticket for me, or do whatever else the social interaction calls for me, you know? But I've had a lot of people in the past that would just jump in and do it, and I don't like that. Like sometimes I'm fine with doing it, and I really appreciate when my friends accommodate in the way of making sure that it's an accommodation that I actually want in the moment, and accepting that there are like various accommodations that are only needed at certain times. And alongside that, with my closest friends, they also make nearly all the plans. Like they basically do make all the plans. I might be like, I'd like to do this thing together, I'd like to go to this place together. I will not be like, on this day we should do this and we can meet at this time and we can do this. You know, like I won't make the actual plan, because there's a fear of rejection, there's a lot of anxiety to it. I don't like making plans. And this is one of those things where I mention it especially with closer friends, because I am very aware that if I don't make a plan with someone I barely know, they don't know that I want to make a plan with them. You know, like I do have friends that I know less well where I'm very aware that if I'm not the person that's like, hi, we should do this thing on this day, it won't happen because they did the last thing, or I just don't know them that well and they won't know that I would like to get to know them better or whatever else. Like, a lot of accommodations for me personally are very situational. But with the people I'm closest to, they know that I'm very uncomfortable in making the actual plan, organising what we'll do, when we'll do it, all of that. So I really, really adore that, like, there's been multiple times that I'm like, I'd like to do this thing, I'd like to go here. And my friends will just be like, okay, it's on this day, we can do it on this day, everyone free that day, we can meet at this time. And they just make the plan for me, and then we actually get to do the thing. And it's so much easier and more comfortable and just nice for me, you know? And I don't begrudge doing it for people that I know less well. You know, I understand that that is a part of building the friendship, but I do think that once someone's like a close friend, they should care enough to be like, oh, that makes you really anxious, I'll just do that. And have the understanding that it's not that I can't be bothered making the plan, it's not that I don't want to, like, I have done it to get to know them, you know? I just don't want to have to continuously do it. It causes me so much stress and anxiety. I don't want to make the plan. Next one's one that is like the biggest emotionally for me personally, but I'm aware it might not be for everyone, and that is that they encourage and like engage in my special interests. And I've had a long history of being like bullied and made to feel really ashamed for my special interests, and having friends that will actively bring up the topic of my special interest, suggest that we do things that surround my special interests, and, you know, like, listen to me, like, engagedly listen to me while I info dump about it, actually suggest things to do with it, you know, like, it's such a beautiful part of friendship that I've never gotten to experience before, and I really love it. And it's one of those things that I do find is kind of necessary, you know, like, I've had a lot of friendships in the past that didn't work out for one reason or another, and I think that a very minor part to all of them was that there were people that didn't necessarily understand my special interests, people who didn't necessarily want me to have those special interests. You know, I've had a lot of people that'd be like, oh, why are you watching that when you could watch this? And it's like, because I'm watching my special interest show, why would I watch that other thing, like, instead? You know, I'm happy to watch my friends' special interest shows, I'm happy to engage in theirs as well, but I've had neurotypical straight up be like, no, that shouldn't be your special interest. And it's so difficult to like build and maintain a friendship with people who don't understand that when I have a special interest, my mind is 99% focused on that thing. You know, I care very deeply about my friends. I won't always know how to show it. I won't always know how to like necessarily engage with them. And for me, it's much more comfortable to be able to like bring up my special interest and begin conversations with that, and like they will progress to other places. But my special interests are a very big and very important part of my life, and having friends who are willing to actually be a part of them and engage with them, I do feel like is a big accommodation for me, you know, like, obviously my main special interest is Doctor Who. We all know that, we talk about it all the time, we fucking love Doctor Who over here. And I don't expect my friends to become Doctor Who fans, but I also have learned to expect my friends to like do dramatic sighs and be really annoyed when I bring up Doctor Who, or like if we're watching something and I'm like, oh, they're in Doctor Who. People used to just like, the people that I considered to be my friends previously, you know, would sigh and be like, not again. And now my friends are like, oh cool, what episode? You know, and it's the most minor little thing that means that spending time with friends has become something that I really don't see as such a social battery draining, like spoon draining, like energy draining thing to do, you know? And like a degree of that is just being nice to your friends. Like, I think that so many autistic accommodations are just people being genuinely nice and caring about their friends, to be honest with you. And that's why I think that the friends I currently have done it very effortlessly, because they are good people who aim to be a good friend to the people they're friends with. But I do also think that, like, maybe I think that way because I'm autistic, you know, I don't know. Next up is checking in on me without being too much. And I mean this very specifically when we're out doing things, when there are things happening, and it's an environment where I would regularly like get overwhelmed, you know, it's an overwhelming environment that we're in when we're going to gigs, when we're going to bars and pubs and like even restaurants and stuff. I will probably get overwhelmed at some point. And there have been so many times in the past that I'd get a little bit overwhelmed but be like, I can deal with this, you know, like I'm having enough fun and having a good enough time and enjoying myself enough that this minor level of overwhelm is something that I can handle and deal with. And then the people around me will notice that I look a little bit overwhelmed and I'm maybe like not having as good a time as I was. And suddenly I become this like absolute centre of attention. Everyone's like, oh my God, are you okay? Do you need anything? Do you need to get you another drink? Do you need to go outside? Do you need this? Do you need that? Do you need this? And suddenly like a slightly overwhelming situation has become several people looking at me and asking me things. I have this like decision paralysis. It's just an absolute nightmare for me, and it makes me want to sink into the ground. It's the worst thing ever. I hate it. So having friends that will like notice that I might look a little bit overwhelmed and they'll be like, you okay? And I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. And they just accept that, you know? Maybe they'll ask again in an hour if I still look a bit overwhelmed, but they don't make me the centre of attention. They don't make a thing out of it. They just make sure I'm okay, accept my answer because I'm a full grown adult. Like, you know, these are people I deeply, deeply trust, and these are probably like my specifically 3 closest friends are the only people where if I wasn't okay, I would be like, no, I'm not okay, I do need to go. So if I'm telling them, no, I'm good, they can trust that, you know? I'm not people pleasing them. I'm not trying to like be anything. It's not a trauma response. Like, I'm all right. I might be a little bit overwhelmed. That happens a lot, but I'm fine. And I feel like a lot of people sort of over accommodate in this way, you know? Like, I don't think for a moment that the people that have put me as the centre of attention in the past and like made a thing out of it, in my opinion, and like from my point of view, I don't think for a minute that they were trying to like make a thing out of it. Like, they were genuinely trying to accommodate and help me out. They just went about it in a way that wasn't accommodating and didn't help me out, you know? They had the best intentions, it just didn't work. And it is those situations where I am suddenly just like, nah, I do need to go, this is way too much. Whereas if I'm just sort of left to it, you know, like check in on me, make sure that I know I have the support there if I need it, but I'm probably going to be all right most of the time, you know? And I'm also a full grown adult. If it does get a bit much, I will be like, oh, I'm going to head off now, I'm getting an Uber, you know? Like, I'm not one to put myself through like things I really don't want to be there for anymore. Finally, one of the really nice ones, and maybe the biggest one for me, is asking until they understand. You know, like, you don't know, I haven't explained anything yet, I'm sorry, but I feel like a lot of people will either never ask and just assume that they understand because they like read an article about autism one time or have an autistic nephew or some bollocks. But there's also the other people that will like ask constantly every single time, and again, I appreciate that there's the best of intentions and they're trying to make sure they accommodate to me appropriately, but asking me every single time is probably not necessary. You know, it's similar to my second point where in some situations I need them to speak for me. And in the past I'd have been like, oh, can you order this for me? Can you do this for me? And eventually they know the look, they understand. So I don't need to ask that anymore. And in the same way, it goes the other way around. Where like my closest friends, the first like, I don't know how many times, maybe the first like 10 times we met, would ask like, do you want a hug? Do you want to do a hug? You know, they'd ask before initiating physical contact. And at first I might be like, nah, I'm not much of a hugger. And then by like the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th time, I'll go in for a hug. I like you, you're my friend now. You know, and after a few more times, I will hug you every time. You don't need to ask me every single time. And there's people that will, and again, I appreciate it. It's better than just doing it. But there should come a point where like, I say yes to a hug every time. You can just give me a hug. It's fine. You know, like another example would be that every day for my entire life, my mum would ask, do you need your food separate on the plate? And I'd be like, yeah. Every meal that I eat, my food can't touch. It shouldn't touch unless it's like, you know, spaghetti bolognese or something like it's like supposed to. But still, every night when my mum made my tea, she'd be like, is this okay to touch? And again, I try to understand that people have the best of intentions, but I also, like, there's a reason that I haven't spoken to my mum in like 2 years. You know, like, there comes a point where like, if you're paying attention to me and if you care about me, you should probably just know what the accommodation is at this point. Like, there's some things that you probably will still have to ask. All of this is situational, but I think that there comes a point where like, you should know, like, you should be able to tell, come on now. But that was my final accommodation that I think I sort of, see, these are things I haven't asked for and I don't expect them, but my friends have started doing them and I've been like, oh, this is sick. So I'm not sure what word I was looking for there, but I would love to hear in the comments any accommodations that you feel your friends make for you, any accommodations that you make for friends that are autistic or have other neurodivergencies, accommodations that you'd like to receive in these types of situations, any of that. Anything to add to the discussion is always very much appreciated in the comments. I post here on Thursdays and Sundays and occasionally a little bit in between. I post nearly enough daily on TikTok still. I occasionally post on Instagram, and I have a Twitter account. It's there. Sometimes I repost Doctor Who things. That's And Our Flag Means Death, that's all I use it for. It's purely for me to retweet things about my favourite shows. So that's there. If you want to support me monetarily, you can become a YouTube member or a Patreon member, or you can also donate to me on Ko-fi, which will all be linked down below. Links to everything will be down below. And as always, there's never any pressure to give me money. There's never any pressure to support me in any way, but especially financially. And I feel like I'm pulling weird faces now because I'm not used to having to use a light in my setup, but it's literally 5:15 and it's pitch black outside. So welcome to the winter edit. Whoever you are, wherever you are, I hope you're having a lovely morning, evening, day, afternoon, week, month, year, and I'll see you again in a couple of days.